Piccadilly Line was built so deep into the earth, often reaching depths of 80 feet, it cuts through layers of history that many would prefer to leave undisturbed. When the engineers first began digging these tunnels in the early 1900s, they were not just moving dirt and clay, they were excavating through centuries of London's secrets. The construction process revealed Roman ruins, Ice Age animal bones, and, most terrifyingly, the massive pits used to bury victims of the Great Plague. This deep connection to the dead has created a permanent atmosphere of mystery and fear. Welcome aboard, and if it's your first visit here, a warm welcome to the channel. In this video, I reveal the details of my research into the most famous ghost stories and paranormal legends associated with the Piccadilly Line, providing a detailed look at the spirits that supposedly haunt the tracks. One of the most persistent stories concerns a strange curve in the tracks between the Knightsbridge and South Kensington stations. On a normal map, it looks like a simple bend, but on a geographically accurate map, the swerve is sharp and seemingly unnecessary. For over a century, the story has been told that the digging machines encountered an obstacle they could not hack through, a massive plague pit from 1665. The legend claims that the ground was so densely packed with the skeletons of thousands of victims that the Victorian engineers were forced to steer the tunnel around the mass grave. While some historians argue that the curve was designed to follow public roads and avoid paying for private property rights, the presence of burial sites in this area is a documented fact. Small pits have been found near Knightsbridge that were used for a laser house, which was a hospital for people suffering from leprosy. This area is often described by workers as having an oppressive atmosphere where the air feels heavy and the temperature drops suddenly. In recent years, modern technology has provided what some believe is visual proof of these ancient hauntings. In 2016, a passenger waiting for a train at Knightsbridge station recorded a short video that quickly went viral. The picture you see is a clip from that video. As the man filmed down the dark tunnel, a pale, blurry figure appeared to be crouching right at the edge of the tracks. The figure seemed to lean out, as if checking to see if a train was coming, and then it quickly ducked back behind a barrier and vanished. Those who believe in the paranormal suggest that this is the spirit of someone buried in the nearby pits, still waiting for a journey they can never take. The crouching ghost is just one of many sightings in a tunnel that is famous for its history of disease and death. The 17th century burial pits for leprosy victims were located mere meters away from where the platforms now sit. Covent Garden station is one of the most beautiful stops on the Piccadilly Line, famous for its dark red oxblood tiles, designed by architect Leslie Green. However, beneath the beauty lies the story of one of London's most famous ghosts. The spirit is said to be that of William Terrace, a Victorian actor who was a superstar of his era. Terrace was known as Breezy Bill because of his adventurous life. Before he was an actor, he had been a sheep farmer in the Falkland Islands, a silver miner, and a horse breeder in Kentucky. The story of the haunting begins with a tragedy. On December the 16th, 1897, he was arriving at the Adelphi Theatre for a performance. As he leaned down to put his key into the stage door in Maiden Lane, a jealous and mentally unstable actor named Richard Prince stepped out of the shadows. Richard Prince stabbed Terrace 3 times with a dagger he had bought that very afternoon. William Terrace died 20 minutes later in the arms of his leading lady, Jessie Millwood, famously whispering, "I will come back," and it looks like he did. While the murder happened at a nearby theatre, the ghost of William Terrace began appearing at the Covent Garden Underground station. Many believe this is because the station was built on the site of a bakery that he visited every day for a hot muffin or mince pie. The ghost is described as a tall, elegant man wearing a grey 3-piece suit, a Homburg hat, and soft white gloves. The sightings became a major problem for the London Underground staff in the 1950s. On a Christmas Eve in the mid-1950s, a ticket inspector named Jack Hayden saw the man walking through the station after it had been cleared of passengers. Hayden tried to speak to him, but the man simply faded away into a wall. A few days later, a young porter named Victor Locker saw the same figure in a staff room. Victor reported feeling a disturbing sensation and an oppressive weight before the man vanished. He was so terrified that he actually lost consciousness. Can you just imagine the terror he felt? The situation became so famous that a spiritualist named Eric Davey was brought in to hold a séance at the station. During the séance, Davey wrote down a psychic sketch and the letters TER before the name Terrace was suggested. Over the next 20 years, the ghost was seen more than a dozen times, usually in November or December. Some workers were so frightened that they officially requested transfers to other stations just to escape the dapper phantom. Between the Tottenham Court Road and Holborn stations on the Central and Piccadilly lines, there is a dark gap in the tunnel walls that most passengers never notice. This was the British Museum station, which opened in 1900 and closed in 1933. Today, it is a ghost station, a dark and abandoned space that is the setting for one of the most frightening legends in London folklore, the ghost of the Egyptian priestess Amen-Ra. I have detailed this story in my video on the Central Line. I will leave a link in the description and the end of this video so you can watch it later. Aldwych Station, originally called the Strand, is perhaps the most famous abandoned station on the Piccadilly Line. It was a small branch line that never had many passengers, and it was finally closed in 1994 because the cost of fixing its old wooden lifts was too high. Today, it is used mostly as a film set for movies like Sherlock and 28 Weeks Later. Before the station was built, the site was home to the Royal Strand Theatre. When the theatre was demolished, the spirits of the performers supposedly moved into the tunnels. The most famous ghost at Aldwych is an actress named Frances Maria Kelly. She was a star of the 19th century who was reportedly devastated when her theatre was closed. Workers and visitors to the abandoned station often report seeing a female figure floating along the tracks in traditional theatre clothes. Staff working the night shift have reported hearing the sounds of singing and the smell of cigarette smoke and perfume. The station feels like a time capsule, with old advertising posters still on the walls and 2 original wooden lifts from 1907 that are the only ones left in the entire London Underground. One of the creepiest features of Aldwych is the Eastern platform, which was closed just 10 years after the station opened in 1907. It is unfinished and looks like a house with insulation but no plaster. This dark, cavernous space is where many visitors feel an overwhelming sense of dread and hear unexplained banging noises. The station is so unsettling that it was featured on the paranormal TV show Most Haunted. South Kensington Station is a place where the deep-level Piccadilly Line meets the shallower District and Circle lines. It is the site of one of the most famous ghost train sightings in history. In December 1928, a passenger who had just missed the last train of the night heard a loud, shrill whistle. Suddenly, a spectral steam locomotive pulled into the station, even though steam trains were no longer used on that part of the line. The witness saw a ghostly figure in a reefer jacket and a peaked cap hanging onto the side of the train as it passed through the station. The train didn't stop to pick up passengers. It simply hissed and roared into the tunnel and disappeared. There was no record of any such train. In addition to the ghost train, South Kensington is associated with a much more modern and terrifying legend, the Hat Man. This is a shadow figure described as a tall man wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat. People across many cultures have reported seeing this figure during episodes of sleep paralysis, but at South Kensington, witnesses claim to have seen him while wide awake. He is described as being over 6 feet tall and having a terrible grin with a mouth full of white teeth. Now that sounds very creepy. King's Cross is one of the busiest transport hubs in London, serving multiple lines including the Piccadilly. It is also a place that has seen immense suffering. In 1987, a devastating fire started under a wooden escalator, killing 31 people. Since then, commuters and staff have reported seeing a young woman with long brown hair wearing a t-shirt and jeans. More detailed hauntings of King's Cross are covered in my Northern Line video. I will leave a link in the description for you. Back to the woman who is always described as being in a state of great distress. She is seen running through the tunnels, screaming and crying with her arms outstretched as if reaching for help. In 1998, a man saw the woman and went to comfort her, but as he reached out, he passed right through her body and she vanished. Some people have also reported smelling the scent of smoke in the exact spot where the fire was most intense, even though the station has been completely rebuilt with fireproof materials. King's Cross is also home to an older legend. Some believe that the warrior queen Boudica, or more modern way of saying it Boadicea, is buried beneath platforms 9 and 10. Her ghost is said to haunt the tunnels, and witnesses have reported seeing a tall, imposing figure in ancient clothing walking the tracks late at night. Whether it is an ancient queen or a victim of a modern fire, the station seems to hold onto the echoes of those who died there. You will also find platform 9 3/4 where Harry Potter was filmed. As the Piccadilly Line moves away from the centre of London toward the west, the stations become quieter and more isolated. Ickenham Station is one such place. It is an open-air station, and it is the site of a very specific and recurring haunting. The ghost is claimed to be a middle-aged woman wearing a bright red scarf. She is known as a beckoning ghost. In 1952, an engineer working in the electrical substation at 2 a.m. looked up and saw the woman watching him. She gestured for him to follow her toward a staircase. He followed her out of curiosity, but as she reached the bottom step, she completely disappeared. Many believe the woman is a passenger who died decades ago after falling onto the live conductor rail. She only appears during the winter months, particularly around Christmas. Unlike some of the more frightening spirits on the line, the woman in the red scarf seems to be a protective figure. Some say she appears as a warning to staff and passengers to be careful near the dangerous electrical rails that took her life. There are many reasons why the Piccadilly Line is considered the most haunted part of the Underground. One reason is its extreme depth. Being so far underground creates a sensory deprivation environment. The darkness, the constant hum of electricity, and the lack of natural light can make the human brain play tricks on itself. Some scientists believe that infrasound, low-frequency sounds that humans cannot hear, can cause feelings of dread and even hallucinations. However, the history of the tunnels cannot be ignored. London is a city built on top of itself. When the Piccadilly Line was constructed, it disturbed plague pits, where thousands of bodies from 1665 were uncovered. The medieval graveyards, where burial grounds for hospitals and churches were cut through, and ancient ruins of Roman and prehistoric remains were found during digging. Many folklore experts believe that stone tape theory explains these hauntings. This is the idea that minerals in the ground and the walls of the tunnels can record high-energy emotional events, like murders or accidents, and play them back like a movie under certain conditions. This would explain why many of the ghosts, like the crying woman at King's Cross or William Terrace at Covent Garden, seem to repeat the same actions over and over again without ever noticing the living people around them. The ghost stories of the Piccadilly Line are more than just scary tales told to frighten tourists. They are a reflection of London's long and often violent history. From the ancient burial pits of the Black Death to the tragic fires of the 20th century, the tunnels are a place where time seems to blur. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, it is hard to deny the binge-worthy intrigue of these stories.